Welcome to the Mind Money Spectrum podcast, where your hosts, Aaron Ogti and Trishul Patel, go beyond traditional finance questions to help you explore how to use your money to achieve the freedom you want in life.
Hi, my name is Aaron Ogti. I'm a financial advisor in the Bay Area. I'm here with Trishul Patel, a wealth manager on the East Coast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here, and thanks for listening and watching.
Great to be here as well. I just realized you didn't actually say that, but that's how I respond every time. Last time we were talking about just like buying stuff and how the cost of stuff has kind of gotten so cheap relative to the value we get out of it, and we start to get into like it almost takes up more space than a cost concern. And like, does that mean you have to buy a bigger house or storage? Like stuff was cheap. Like that. That's kind of one of the things. And I shared a quick story about how I don't mind spending money, and I'm actually can almost have like my example was hiring a plumber. Like I had a problem with the toilet. I knew how to fix it. I knew exactly what the problem was. And my wife asked me, okay, when are you going to do it? And I'm looking at my calendar, and with kids and different sports schedules, like, 2 weekends from now. And she's like, no, I'm calling a plumber. It costs $180 to bring the plumber. It's fixed the next day. So this led to a conversation after with Trishul where we were thinking like, I think you found like a Tesla robot that folds laundry or something like that. I'll let you explain that in a second.
Right.
But it gets to the idea like, what else can you outsource? Like, and like, what's good things to spend money on? Because like, it's not stuff, and like, that's a conversation for last time. But now we're thinking like more of experiences. We're happy to spend money on experiences, but also if you can get rid of some of those regular chores, what's the implication of that? Both a little bit financial, but also a little bit from a big picture humanity perspective. So, Trisha, I first want to ask you, like, one, did I get the Tesla robot? Like, I'll explain that, and explain kind of what you were thinking as you were asking the question about, like, how do we spend time on chores? Like, what was that thing?
Yeah, so the thought process kind of went like this. Basically, we finished off that conversation on how there's a lot of consumer discretionary items that are available for super cheap now that you can satisfy your need for entertainment with like a laptop or a phone or a TV or a projector or whatever it happens to be for a minimal amount of money. And you can do the same across the variety of things that we mentioned in that episode. And if you have that covered, then we were just thinking about a few other things, and a few other things did come up. Like I saw, as you had mentioned, Tesla is creating a line of robots. And I saw one example, one clip, I probably should have prepared it, of a Tesla robot folding clothes, right? And then it made me think, okay, so if the robot can fold clothes, and then we're going to have self-driving cars soon, and then we're going to have all of these other efficiency upgrades, does that mean that, as far as like household chores, there's nothing kind of left to do, from maintenance standpoint of just maintaining your lifestyle in your home environment? And then, of course, we talked about all these other automations that are making, your employment situation also that much more efficient. And one thing that also caught my eye is there was a new device that's coming out. It's called the Rabbit. I should have prepared that too. But
We'll put it in the notes.
Yeah. Well, I got the Google thing. Rabbit something. Okay. Let's see what comes up. But pictures of rabbits. That didn't help.
That's like that was my first thought. Like, was actually going to happen. Like, I feel like you have to Google more specifically.
Rabbit device. Okay, that worked. Okay, I'm going to share the screen. We can talk a little bit about it. So it's a handheld device. Let's see what I can show here on the screen itself. A little handheld device. It looks like kind of like a smartphone type of thing, but it's very simplified, right? And you kind of hold it in your hand, and all it really does is a little camera that shoots out, has a little screen that gives you some sort of feedback, and it mainly has a microphone that you talk into. And the distinction between this and your ordinary device is you can certainly talk into your smartphone and you can say, hey Google or hey Alexa or whatever, and it will go off and do things. But oh boy.
So you also realize when you're at home, you have to use Hey Siri as an example, and
Right.
I will try to use Hey Alexa because I have Siri on my watch and phone and iPad, and
Right.
and you have one of the other ones that got that got your attention.
One day Siri will realize that we're talking about Siri, not to Siri, and so on. But here we are. Okay, so one thing that these phones don't do is if they hook up to a large language model, that large language model doesn't really know what to do with that in terms of executing commands on actual apps. So what this Rabbit device is based off is a large app model or something like that. They have a better acronym for it. But the notion is it's been fed information on how to actually use apps and actually execute commands on apps based upon voice input. So, for example, you talk into this device and you say, set up a meeting with my 3 best friends at a place that we all happen to like and put it on our respective calendars. And if there happens to be a conflict, figure out a best time and figure out how best to communicate with them. And it will literally go off and it'll email Joe and it'll text Bob and it'll call up Mike because he doesn't use either, and it'll figure all that out and it'll get back to you with potential options, and it'll add it to the calendar, and there you go, right? Or you can do other things like, again, I mentioned it has a video camera, so you can point it at your refrigerator and say, prepare a couple meal suggestions based upon the ingredients you see, right? Things like that. So now you have this consumer device. It's pretty cheap. It's a couple $100, and it could potentially be your personal assistant in your pocket, right? Something that may have been outsourced to an individual who could actually do all this stuff for you, like plan a vacation, but it can actually go out and do that, using all the apps that you give it access to, like your Expedia and your Google Voice or your calendar or your phone itself, right? It can start making calls on your behalf. And then, okay, so the evolution of this is, okay, you have all of your home situation handled, right? You have automated cars to drive yourself around. I mentioned to you offline, Aaron, that my wife and I, between us, spend, like 10 or 15 hours a week just shuttling my daughter around to her various activities in schools. So that could be completely taken care of, right? And all of a sudden, we have much more free time than we would. And it kind of begs the question, okay, now what? What's left for humans?
Okay, so I have 2 thought paths that I want to kind of, I don't know which one I want to go down, but as you were describing this and the interconnectivity of the Rabbit with all the other apps and devices that we have, my first thought was just Star Trek, like just watching, like they all had access to the computer and like they would just say like, computer, what's going on, like, and they could get that information.
Yeah.
And it was like, it made me think like, how far away from that are we? Like,
you're already there.
a generation that like before, like it's like ubiquitous kind of.
Yeah. Well, what's $200? I don't know.
And that's like, I could be like, generation implies like 2 or 3 decades. Like I could be like way too long, but it could be a lot sooner than that.
Yeah.
The other path, so like one is like well thought out science fiction that gives us possibilities, helps kind of be creative, like, and I think this is actually relevant because how they spend their time in those fictional universes is relevant.
Yeah.
Um, the other path, which you mentioned, like if you have a driverless car and you still want to spend time with your daughter, you can now have some kind of activity that you do in the car together on the way to drop her off daycare instead of you being the driver. So it doesn't necessarily imply you put her in the driverless car and then she gets dropped off down the road. Like that might be the case at some point, but for like closer future, like you have an activity you do in the car together.
Right.
And this, like the thought process, like there exists that like you can hire a driver. Like there are people whose incomes are high enough that they have drivers and chauffeurs for that exact reason, so they can get stuff done. And they also have maids and butlers. Like that is a profession.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking, like, are we kind of like bringing down the income or wealth required to have that kind of lifestyle and or freedom? And or like, can we use that as a model for how they spend their time?
Yeah.
Because I have seen some research, but this is both life planning related, is also kind of goes back to like the well-being, happiness, fulfillment idea, that if you outsource so much of the stuff, like if I know how to like change a tire kind of thing on a car, do some basic house maintenance. I fold the laundry while I'm watching sports on TV. We're like teaching our kids chores, and like I think that idea of like teaching kids chores is almost like universal across human history. Like this is how you're getting your kids to practice being an adult kind of thing. Like they have to do, like, they start with low stakes, easy tasks, and you keep building back up, and as you teach them responsibilities, and eventually they start doing themselves without you having to tell them. And these are all important factors to be good contributing members of society. So whatever kind of phrase you want to use that, like, and I guess I don't know enough people who are rich enough to have chauffeur, maid, butler at that scale, and have that like sample size kind of thing. But even of the few I know from like ancillary perspectives, um, the stories tend to be mixed in terms of you kind of like see like they can be just as driven, and they have sort of kind of higher expectations for what they want to do in life. They expect to be able to become high up at a company and to actually affect change, or they go down a philanthropy path where they want to try to affect the world, or sometimes they become too lazy, and drug habits can actually be an issue where they don't have any of that life fulfillment. And so I think these are two kind of extremes, but it's also like very small sample sizes. But I do wonder if we try to introduce this to more of the masses, where you no longer have to do chores. What does that mean? Like, I don't think I want to try to figure like how will society adjust. I think that's more of a society is going to have to adjust. Like it's like we're going to be forced to kind of thing. But I'm more interested, like, what does that mean? Like, I want you, especially like for me, just at the stage of my life where I have kids that I'm teaching them to do things. If they don't have to fold laundry, they don't have to empty the dishwasher, take out the trash, walk the dog. Like if they don't have those tasks, those chores, how will I make sure to teach them work ethic, grit, like saving for the future, doing the things that aren't comfortable and fun. Get your homework done. Work hard.
Yeah.
I think these are, I don't want to say concerns. Mostly, let's go like, I think my kids will be grown and out of the house before this is close to being a problem. But like, I can't. You know what? It's like, I would say I can't see myself hiring a Tesla laundry folding robot in the next 5 years when my oldest will be a senior in high school. But in the next 10 years, like I am aware, like, we cannot predict the future very well. We cannot predict like there's like lots of really good studies of like how much has your life changed in the last 5 years? Like, oh, I'm from here to here, like some drastic change. What do you life's going to be 5 years from now? Oh, about the same plus inflation.
Yeah.
Like it's the end of history problem. Like people like they can't fathom how drastic the next 5 years could be. So I'm like trying to be aware of that part and acknowledging like, yes, I don't think I'll hire a Tesla robot to fold my laundry in the next 5 years. But on the scale of 10 years, my youngest son will still be in the house. Like, is here? I remember one of my chores growing up, I had to mow the lawn. That was one of my specific chores.
Yeah.
And the quick side note, if you ever have to mow the lawn and you have a lemon tree, you throw a few lemons like around the yard, and as you're mowing the lawn, you like run over the lemons, and it actually makes the yard smell really nice. So
pro tip. Like it.
Lawn mowing as a chore tip. So we got to our current house just based on the age of our kids and the lifestyle. My wife and I were both working full time. Our kids were too young to kind of do this. Like, okay, we hired a gardener, and like we had the income, and we didn't have the time, and our kids were too young to like do that. So, like 6 months after that, realized that the lawnmower that I've moved to different houses that I've had for a decade, we hadn't touched because the gardener shows up with their own lawnmower. It's like, huh, this is literally just taking up space in the garage. I guess it's time to sell the lawnmower. So I sold it on Craigslist for some cheap amount. So now I can't even give that chore to my kids. My oldest is definitely old enough to mow the lawn now.
Yeah.
But we still have the gardener and there's no lawnmower, so I can't expect that chore that I did. I can't pass that on to my kids. But what do I could make them fold. The oldest does her own laundry, so like I feel that's been a success, I guess. Like I still fold the laundry of the youngest one, but what happens in 5 years when I'm ready to pass that chore on and there's a household robot that's folding the laundry? Because I actually don't like it either.
Right.
I have to like, it's like the watching shows on the Stairmaster kind of thing. Like I fold laundry while watching sports.
Yeah.
Like, I will stand in the living room for hours enjoying usually football or golf because those are things that are on weekends throughout the year.
Right.
But so like I'm curious. I had not expected to like go down like the parenting path, but I think it is relevant to what do you think it means when we don't have to do chores?
Okay, so I'm going to start off with I'm asking ChatGPT a question. How long did laundry take 100 years ago?
Oh, interesting.
Because, okay, so around the 1920s, it was very labor intensive, lacking modern machines, obviously. So you had to boil and soak the clothes. You had to hand wash everything, right? You had to rinse, and then you have to move things to wring out with water, right?
Yeah.
The next step is drying. I should have said, please be brief, ChatGPT. Come on here. Next, you got to iron everything, right? Basically, for a large family, it'd be optimistic to have it take a full day of your time, right?
Okay. I
so
can see
1 out of 7 days a week just for laundry.
Okay. Also, my initial thought was, I don't think they own that many clothes. You're only watching like 2 to 4 things per person.
Maybe, but
like I know going back a couple hundred years, like they did not shower and bathe regularly, so that's why perfume was a big thing.
Yep. Let's just hope ChatGPT factor that in. So it's
Okay.
taking it from the 1920s. But the notion is it used to take a full day, right, to do, and now maybe 2-3 hours end to end. And you're not really doing the work, when you put it in the
Correct.
machine and it's running for an hour, you're not really laundrying for that full hour. So, it might just be the folding part. So I think 2 hours is a good end-to-end number, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And the other thing is 1920s, probably, I should just ask, what percent of the population was in agriculture, right?
I'm gonna guess 19. I'm gonna guess 35%.
Okay, so in the 1920, 27%, right, was in ag.
Okay.
Pretty close, Aaron. So about a third. So essentially, about 100 years ago, 3 out of 10 hours in the day for your average human is spent figuring out what to do about food, right, to get the actual food grown. And now,
okay, so I'm gonna I think kind of that. I'm guessing the agriculture is like a household number, and within that household, again, like there's still a lot of gender dynamics that it was the males farming and females would be washing their clothes. So I think those would kind of happen concurrently.
that's fine. We can view it from that light. But basically, 27% of the workforce is in agriculture back then. And if you segment it by gender, it may be more for the males on the actual farming side. Maybe even who knows though, because you still have other less labor intensive but still farming related activities that everybody in the household needs to help out with.
Okay.
Like the hens and the making stuff up.
Now you're imagining like was watching Cinderella as a kid. Like, what did Cinderella do when I in that animated movie that I watched 20-30 years ago?
Right, yeah. So basically the whole point is just to survive, you're spending most of your time, right? Getting the clothes taken care of, getting the food on the table, getting the whatever needs to be done. It takes up a vast majority of the efforts. And you add 100 years before that, then basically all of your time is just to make it past age 40, right? If you want to have some chance of survival and beating disease.
I think I have my question. I don't know if I want to save it or because I think this will change the conversation. But okay, now I'm going now. So, do you think people were happier then or happier now? And happier doesn't have to be just happy. That were they more fulfilled then or more fulfilled now? That kind of sense of well-being.
It's a good question.
And I have a guess.
Well, okay, so two things. I think if you're in survival mode, like 200 years ago, and you can barely have food on the table, I think that's a sense of struggling that probably could impact happiness at its core. Like if you have, if you're in a starvation situation where you're calorie deficient, you're probably not even having the energy to produce the neurotransmitters for happiness, right? In your daily diet and routine.
Okay, I was actually my initial thought was that it would be about the same, but as you mentioned that you probably there were, especially for agriculture, if you have an abundance year, you're there's definitely years that you're happier and years that you're less happy. It's not necessarily day to day, but I think if you had a kind of good sense that it was a good harvest coming in, then my guess would be the work that you do on a day-to-day basis still feels fulfilling. You can directly translate the work that I do provides this for my family, and so I find that fulfilling, even though it's hard work.
It could be, but have you read Grapes of Wrath, right? Steinbeck, the whole Dust Bowl of 1930s.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So you have a situation where where you get into a famine situation and things turn ugly. And, civilization may have gone through that every 10, 20 years, going back thousands of years. It's just part of life. And I feel like that just doesn't happen anymore. There has to be some consolation to that
maybe
not being a factor.
I do think I do think it does happen though. Like
in developed countries, right? Famine.
No, but it's traded with things like, imagine how you felt in 2008 going through the economic crisis of, like, again, this fact that a lot of people across income spectrums where people are out of work and so they don't have the income. And it's like, well, there are a lot of social programs that can provide food. Like, I think that's still similar to the stress feeling. I'm guessing would be similar. And then we probably saw that again in 2020. That was different, but it's like the 1918, 1919 Spanish flu. It's like, I do think that humanity goes through something horrible every decade or so.
This is hard to say because, like 100 years ago, was it like 1 in 5 children didn't make it to age 5, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You have a set of kids, one of them's not making it. However,
but you had more kids to, like,
you kind of accept that fact.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the fact that you are able to accept your present situation such that you go on, similar to how you're able to accept other types of situations these days that maybe aren't as as discerning, to us, as it was back then. So it's hard to say. There's a good amount of subjectivity that can play
It's
in.
like we see that poverty around the world is down significantly. Life expectancies are significantly longer.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of benefits and positives there. So maybe it would be the catastrophic things are less local or specific. Like it's fewer families have to deal with those things, but on a societal basis, that, like, a wider range of different types of things can cause stresses from one year to the next. I do think, like, when you said the Dust Bowl, it's like, my thought was like 2020 sucked for everybody. And, like, didn't matter that food was not a concern. And so, like, that's kind of my immediate translation in terms of, like, again, that, like, well-being, fulfillment, the happiness part of it.
Well, okay, so I think we can lean on some understanding here of closer to present day research, because there's a good amount of understanding that happiness does correlate with wealth up to a certain level, right?
It's like it's really steep up to, like, basic needs met. You don't have to worry about paying the next bill. You don't have to worry about putting food on the table next month. Like
right.
You're pretty comfortable that, hey, I'm not going to go hungry in the next few days or the next few weeks.
Yeah.
After that, like, I think it's steep, and then, like, about 75,000 per household. Like, it's still a little bit upward, but not as strong a correlation.
Right. So if we use that understanding and extrapolate it backwards, basically the basic needs met today as a percentage of the population is far higher than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
I agree with that.
There was a far higher percentage of the population in poverty that couldn't meet those basic needs. So, I think by that understanding, it may give us credence to say that, people are probably happier. The world is probably happier. More people have come out of poverty in the last 50 years than, any other time in history as a percentage of
millennia previously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's a great point. That's a great point.
There are trends that are showing that. Now, so I want to add one caveat or one other dimension to think about, and that's that extra amount of happiness that you might get beyond the basic needs. I think what the factor that may be more relevant there is our there's this philosophical idea that there's a difference between pain and suffering, right? Now,
Okay.
if you look them up, there could be a strong overlap. We're just using labels to,
Yeah.
give a distinction between two ideas. And like for example, from a Buddhist perspective, the notion is pain is inevitable, right? But suffering is optional,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
the idea
My
behind
thought
that,
was like, pain would be acute, and or related to circumstance,
Mhm.
things outside your control. Uh, so yeah, like I guess like I was like, losing a child definitely would have been painful both now and in the past. But in the past, because it was closer to expected, it was less of a suffering, whereas now it would be.
So the distinction I'm trying to make is when something bad happens, like you get hurt, it's definitely going to be painful. However, how you react to that event is up to you, right?
Okay.
For example, if I get a paper cut, it can end my week. Or I can say, oh, it's a paper cut. It stings, but I'll be okay. And I, move on. And you can use that same understanding with whatever event you want to put in play, including, losing a child. It's very painful, but the suffering part of it can be optional depending on your mindset, right? The amount of suffering you have can be from 0 to infinity, depending on your mindset that you bring to that. And we've noted, what we're trying to say, what the point that we're trying to make earlier is there likely was a mindset difference between losing a child today versus losing a child 100 years ago, where there was a greater degree of acceptance because it just happened so often, right? Whereas if it happens today, it's harder to accept on average. However, in either case, it doesn't change the fact that it could very well be optional depending on your mindset.
Okay.
So I think that's the extra lever that may make the difference between pain today and suffering today, based upon the ability to have all of these things at a marginal cost of nothing.
Okay. I guess the reason I was asking that general question of are people happier then versus now is I do, and you're right. The basic subsistence is probably the deciding factor,
Mhm.
and that's a much larger scale. In my mind, I was thinking of when you talk about like, agriculture and that, from like if a farmer like is doing well, like they are not worried about putting food on the table in any particular day, week, month, but they still have to work 7 days a week,
Mhm.
and they're working sun up to sundown. I do think that again, if the basic needs are met, that even though they have less leisure time, I don't think they're usually less happy or less fulfilled or etc. Do
Yeah.
you
So,
agree with that premise?
there is, I think the distinction is similar to what I wrote down, as you were saying that. I think we could maybe characterize this into 3 different phases. So the first phase was happiness that was focused on survival, right? Meeting basic needs,
Yeah.
right? But then I think there was a transition, over the last 100 years or so towards not just survival, but this notion of stability, right? The idea of having a career, your needs are met, but you want things to be smoother, right? You want a smoother ride through this journey, and the career and, the ability to save for the future and the pension and all of that provides that. And then
Okay.
the third phase is what we're just entering now, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But I think that's the distinction.
Okay. So as soon as you said the phases, I realized, wait, I've studied this. It's actually it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Have you heard of that one?
Yeah. Yeah. We can,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
pull it up
the
here. Do you
physiological
want to share your
needs.
screen?
Yeah, sure. He has like a nice little pyramid. This is a good one. Let's see. Yeah, so it's like I feel like, are you and I like just repeating psychology and philosophy that someone else came up with?
Are we reinventing the whole?
Kind of.
Well, yeah, but
Uh,
hopefully we're trying to apply it to what's going on now.
yeah. Okay. So
yep.
yeah, when we look at this, it's the we got ads over here. Physiological needs: breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep, like
There
safety,
you go.
security, love and
Stability.
belonging,
Okay.
self-esteem, and then like self-actualization.
Right.
So it does sound like 100 years ago, this bottom of the pyramid was kind of more important and required more of our time and effort.
Right.
But now so this is actually, I think this is actually a perfect like next point of the conversation. It's like, if we have robots doing all of the things on these bottom two levels,
Yeah.
I think that we can actually focus on these top three.
Yeah.
I think this is.
I was just going to say, for our listeners, the top three are love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization would be the top.
Yeah, I guess, what, for listeners, that's a good point. So for listeners, love and belonging includes friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection. I'm just reading off the screen.
Yeah.
Self-esteem includes confidence, achievement, respect of others, the need to be a unique individual. And self-actualization, the top of the pyramid, is morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and inner potential.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really good. And I think that we see that.
Yeah.
Even go back to my example of like the high income wealthy people that you think of in movies that have the chauffeur, the maid, the butler, so they don't have to do the chores.
Yeah.
They kind of have that, again, the physiological and safety security taken care of, but they have to focus on still finding those connections with friends and family. They have to focus on like what builds their self-esteem. What can they do that they're proud of? And this actually directly gets back to like the chores idea. I know how to fix the toilet. I know how to change the tire. I may never do that. I'll hire the plumber or use AAA. I'll change the tire. I'll probably do myself. But there's other things that, it's not worth my time and energy to go down this path. It's much more important to like just do the other things, like my income, I can afford it. Like, so now how do I make sure that I am doing something I can be proud of? And again, it's not a external validation. It's not like, hey, you're doing a good job at that. It has to be internal. It has to be like, I know I'm working hard up to my own satisfaction.
Yeah. It's interesting then, because if we put on the mindset that we're in a stage where basically anything a human can do can be done better by a non-human, right?
That's a different conversation for a different day, but I'll grant the premise for now.
Well, everything's automated, right? You have robots doing the laundry, the driving, the plumbing, whatever it happens to be, that they're handling it for us, right? What's left for humans at that point? Yes, I could change my tire. Yes, I could grow the farm, right? I could do all of these things, but they're not for survival. They're not for any of the things on the two bottom rungs of that pyramid, right? They're not for physiological needs or for safety needs. They're more for self-actualization or esteem.
Yeah. So I'm almost like imagining the farmers, like 100 years ago, the farmer had to actually like use a shovel and dig in the dirt. And they had a horse and a plow, and like to actually hold the seeds in their hand. A
Yeah.
modern day farmer is probably some combination of mechanic and or botanist, like doing like pH levels of the soil, checking like water, like how much water the soil is getting, then like got to fix the machines that do actually do the farming. And like I can entirely see a modern farmer who never actually touches a shovel.
Yeah.
Because like trying to dig up one plant just isn't worth it. That's just like mow it over and like move on to the next 100 plants that the machine's going to take care of.
So if all of that ends up being covered, is there enough motivation to do anything at that point?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I think we've talked about this kind of in the past of like that always forward idea. Like you have to almost take pride in the process of growing without actually like having a goal helps that. Like I'm going to take these each individual steps to reach this goal. But even after you reach that goal, like you almost have to like move your own goalposts. Like you like before you get there, you want to like extend a little farther, like and choose new steps. And like you have to like climbing the staircase, not reaching the end.
So what goals are worth following if they're not meant for survival or safety?
Oh, that's a good one.
I have an answer, but
Okay,
I want to hear yours.
Right now with my kids, I've been coaching them in sports, and for the youngest one is just do what I say. Here, work on this, do this, get your arm up, focus on this, like just do what I say. For the oldest one, I've been able to have honest conversations. So she's 12, about to turn 13, and she's old enough to kind of decide how to spend her time, what activities. And I said, like, the two things that I use sports for is practicing at something to get better. Like going, I'm not good at this, focused, intentional practice with the idea of getting better, and physical activity for my own health. Those are the two reasons I particularly love sports. She does not need to use sports for those two things. But if she's not going to play sports, and that's her choice, she still has to do those two things. What is she going to work on to get better? And that's one of the things I think about is, again, getting back to like that self-esteem idea, that confidence achievement. It's like, I couldn't do this yesterday. I'm working on it today. Tomorrow I can do it.
Yeah.
And like that sense of grit kind of back then. And so, but it almost comes down to, it doesn't matter what the thing is. As long, and I'm again relating to parenting, but as long as you're doing something that is hard, you can't do it, and then you start working on it, and then you can do it. That's what I think humanity needs to find if robots are doing all the work.
It's tricky because that has been a helpful mindset to have, because it leads to greater physiological and safety for humans, right? But if that's no longer the case, is it still beneficial to do those things? For example, before this wasn't the point you were making, but you might get into sports, right, to get the scholarship, to help your career, to get the job invite. However, you might be doing it, like you said, just because it makes you more healthy. But if that's no longer a concern, right? We've solved those health issues with the GPTs. You'll live you'll live a healthy life without doing any exercise.
Okay.
I
don't think we've ever discussed that connection. I was like, how do you say that you can live a healthy life without ever doing exercise? What makes you say that?
In the future?
Yes.
Okay, you upload your brain to the computer, so you no longer have a biological
but that's too far in the future. I'm going. Okay, that's too far in the future. I'm talking about the next.
Or there's no ramifications for eating off. You've heard of like Ozempic and like other types of present day drugs where you can overeat now and you won't gain weight, right? Or you can do X and it won't have a benefit. You'll swap out that organ. You can smoke and you'll get new lungs tomorrow. You can do liver damage, right? Anything is replaceable, right? That there's no real issue with doing tremendous amount of damage to your body because there's an organ that you can get at McDonald's with your next Big Mac to replace it.
Okay. So for right now, I will grant that part of the premise. So go on. You don't need to exercise to be healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I interrupted you. I don't know.
Yeah. So then the question is, well, why do anything?
Okay.
Or what's left to do?
So my first thought was, I actually think it might be like an evolution of how the brain developed, like going back eons, where the human brain almost requires that sense of achievement to be happy.
Yeah.
And that like sense of achievement can come from anywhere. I remember like my oldest daughter was playing a random video game, and you have to go through this path and there's obstacles, and you have to get in under a certain time to get the 3 stars.
Yeah.
And she probably did this path 20, 30, 40 times before she finally got there. But when she got there, she was so excited.
Yeah.
I made sure to take a picture of her. Like that's a memory that I have of her. And like, I have seen that kind of thing play out in so many examples for both myself and my children and all the kids I've coached. Like, you go from, this thing is hard, I keep getting better and better and better and better and better, and better until I get the thing and it feels great.
Yeah.
And I do think that's like a human brain wiring kind of thing. I do
It
think
is.
it's an evolutionary base.
It's like the delayed gratification gene, right? It's there for a reason.
Yes. And so I do think that the like humans will still need that kind of feeling.
Yeah. See, but I think the distinction is we would be getting that kind of feeling just for the purpose of making ourselves happy, not for the purpose of furthering our lives for physiological or safety reasons.
I think I agree. I think we're getting that feeling for the self-esteem reasons and maybe like the self-actualization reasons. I think so.
It's like I mean, this was one of our earlier conversations, right? From an existentialist viewpoint, you're free to create your own reality on things. Like, you can make your own rules because there's no pure understanding of what is happiness or what is meaning, right? Or like Descartes, I think, therefore I am, is the one thing you can say, and anything beyond that could be some sort of illusion, right?
Okay.
So then if you start that with that as the premise, well, one step beyond that is, okay, you are thinking, you might as well be more happy than less happy. That might be just one small jump that you could agree upon as a thinking conscious being. Okay. And then, one step beyond that is, well, if you want to be more happy than less happy, you actually want to be more happy over your entire life, right? You don't want to just have one quick spike of happiness and that's it. It's over. But you probably want to maximize the integral of happiness from the beginning to the end of your life.
That's interesting. Okay, so I think, I don't know, I kind of disagree with that, because I think this is actually my Pixar theory. Pixar movies are amazing at providing that like super positive feeling, because at some point beforehand they take you way down.
Yeah.
Like, they make you cry to make you cheer, and that delta from low to high, I think that matters.
Okay,
and so I think that like the happiness thing, like, yes, you want that spike, but if you get up there and like you stay there, like your brain just becomes accustomed to it. And we also go back to like that pain idea of like it's just like life in general, bad stuff happens, and how do we adjust to it? And like that resiliency, I think, allows for that better opportunities for those ups and downs. Like, we need it's not up and stay up. It's up, handle the downs, get back up.
Well, see, I think here's the question: is it the derivative, right? The change that matters, or is it really still the integral? For example,
Okay. So
I
love,
think it,
love that we're using the math as this. Totally agree with that. But yeah. Okay. So go on. Derivative
think
versus integral of happiness.
yeah, I think it could still be the integral because, for example, if you, like you were saying, if you go for the derivative and you try to stay up there at the high level, it just doesn't work. You just can't do it. That's not how life works. You'll get accustomed to it and you will inevitably fall down. You'll get used to it. But if you
Okay.
could, right, if you could somehow stay there, you're going to need some sort of strategy to keep you there. You can't just keep doing the same thing again and again and again. Life doesn't work like that.
Okay. Oh, okay. I like that. Oh, that's actually a good analogy. I think you're right. It's more integral. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be super steep. Okay. It's
No, it
okay
doesn't.
it
Yeah.
takes time to get there.
And it can have ups and downs too.
And if you keep your baseline, if you get to that level and change nothing,
Yep.
just the way the brain works, you're eventually going to start falling back down.
Exactly.
So you have to either work harder to keep that same level, or once you realize that you start going down, you have to, at that point, work harder to get back up to that level.
Right. So the friction that you'll meet, right, is the law of diminishing returns, essentially, right? And you just can't do the same thing again and again to see the same incremental amount of improvement. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So if you really are trying to maximize that integral, you need a strategy that isn't just basically get me to 10 and keep me there indefinitely. We don't know how to do that, which is why you need that delayed gratification gene, right? You need, and why that instant gratification gene helps in some circumstances, but isn't the best long-term strategy. It may help you on the delta, right, initially, but eventually your integral over your life won't be as great.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good on. I'm comfortable with that. So trying to get back to like our almost initial question.
Yep.
So I think going back historically, I think that helps, because my guess is that 100 plus years ago, the activities that provided the bottom of the pyramid also provided the top of the pyramid. That like doing the work, like you felt that fulfillment.
Right.
We're now at a stage where we are separating those parts of the pyramid. The activities that provide the bottom of the pyramid don't necessarily also provide the top of the pyramid. So we need to find the thing for each person individually that helps build that confidence, helps kind of get that sense of achievement.
Yeah, like if you think about purpose, right? Well, why did people do things? What was their reasoning? It was really initially focused on the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And there was a marginal amount of time when things were going well and the stars aligned and, everything like that, where the top of the pyramid could get some more visibility, right, in someone's life.
Yeah.
But as humanity goes from this next stage, right, this next phase, as we talked about, it seems like what's now important is a core focus on, this maximization of happiness over one's lifetime, this integral.
So now I'm trying to think if there were no chores. I guess for me, it still kind of comes from sports, but it's like, I'm curious, how do you teach that to your kids? How do you teach that? How do you, Trishul, teach that to your daughter?
Yeah.
If she never has to do a chore in her life.
It's interesting because, so part of, the current regime is you want to maximize long-term gratification, and that'll help you increase your integral, right? You want to, but by doing that, that's a good strategy. But then the question begs that, well, what if that's no longer the case? What if those types of endeavors don't lead to that type of gratification? Like, as we said before, in the first regime, if you're focusing on survival and that's where your self-actualization plays in. It has a double effect, right? You live
Yeah.
and you get this benefit of
Yeah.
surviving and being
I think the
happy
sense
about
of
it.
purpose, that sense of
Right.
purpose. And again, there's a lot of philosophers and a lot of other lifeline like that. That's a well-known kind of phrase. So like that's not
Yeah.
original to us, but I think that's a really good key phrase for this part of the conversation.
It is. So then the notion is, okay, well, how do you gain a sense of purpose when you already know you're trying to maximize this inner goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are just doing whatever things that you know help maximize it, even though it has no other purpose beyond that. Maybe that is the whole purpose. What can I do in my life to make sure that inner goal is maximized as much as I can? That I can live up to that potential. And maybe it means things like you're saying, like sports, because it provides that feedback, even though the end result isn't physiological or safety related in nature.
Yeah. So I do think about when I play sports, it a lot of it comes from the sense of camaraderie and community that I have with other players, friends I've had playing with, like especially like with opponents, even.
Yeah.
Like I I would rather have a really, really close game that I lost at this point in my life,
Yeah.
that I'm playing in, than winning in a dominant game. Like that's just
Yeah.
at
So,
this point in my life, like playing the close game, like having that evenly matched opponent matters more to me
yeah.
because again, I find the fulfillment in playing the game, like
Yeah.
seeing like how good can I be, how like can I do, how well can I do this thing.
Right. So
Um,
I think you're doing the thing, right? You're maximizing the integral,
yeah, yeah.
right? It's not about anything else beyond that.
I also, so when you were talking about the um like finding that thing, like one of my thoughts was like almost like starving artists, like or I guess even among the
Yeah.
wealthy, like how many people go into art where like they're creating the art for art's sake, like
Yeah.
they're not doing it to provide for income or
Yeah.
for any of the bottom of the pyramid. Like they don't even like necessarily care about the feedback. They like creating the art.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And,
so I feel like that's the purpose. Then I think we're almost there. Meaning the notion is, in order to give you the best chance of success with this notion, you want to do things that give you this type of happiness bump in the short, middle, and long term, right? And then you
yeah,
seek out those things that do that. And
yeah,
some of it's essentially looking for the things to fill your life with that can provide those types of benefits just for the sole purpose of getting those benefits over your
yeah,
life, right? That's
yeah.
it.
So it reminds me, like this actually goes. This is why I love talking to you. It reminds me of, so for the kids, like I want them to find something that will have some kind of internal drive,
Yeah.
and maybe that's not at school. Maybe it's a school structure that allows them to explore the things that they find internally gratifying.
Yeah.
Um, I I think about, again, it could be artists for some. So I think
Yeah.
that we probably will see more artists who are creating just for the creation's sake,
Yeah.
but the feeling doesn't have to be art. It could be uh if they want to get into construction, and I built a clubhouse for my kids during COVID, and my daughter has expressed interest in like trying to build her own chair. If she actually like spends the time and energy to learn more advanced woodworking techniques that I don't know,
Yeah.
like sure, let's build a chair. Like I have no idea what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
like that provides that sense of doesn't know how to do it, working hard, gonna make mistakes, keep improving, and eventually she'll have a chair that she can sit in.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that in itself is all the purpose one needs, right? Just
Yeah.
right, that is the sole purpose. Beyond, there's nothing beyond that that's necessary.
So again, I think again as a society we're not quite there. Like I still need my kids to earn an income, and so I'm still teaching like those kind of skills, but
Mhm.
maybe a generation from now, like the income matters less. But so it'll be something like teaching people how to figure out their own purpose.
Yeah, or how to figure out how to maximize that curve, right? How do you do that? And what are the best strategies that work? That provide the best advantages or chances of success.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that as a species, right? That's likely the next step in human evolution.
Yeah. So if robots can do all the chores, we got to go up the pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, I think I mentioned this past one of the podcast. My degrees at UCLA are applied math and philosophy. So this might be one of my favorite episodes in retrospect.
All right. Yeah, well, I'm coming at it from a layman, so hopefully we got somewhere. It feels like we did, but I don't know.
I'm glad the Maslow's hierarchy needs kind of clicked for me. Like, wait, I've seen this before. I think it's actually like a psychology thing, but it's a little different. But yeah. Someone else has already done this work.
But did we just solve the meaning of life here? Is that what we just did? Can we scratch that off the list of burning questions for humanity?
Maybe. Like I'm pretty comfortable with this one.
I'm okay with it.
I'd love to find someone like no, you're wrong and here's why. I actually would really love to hear that.
That's great. Yeah, me too. If you have any idea what we're doing wrong or what we missed, please. It's probably obvious, so please let us know.
Yeah. I think that we're trying to acknowledge we're not original in this, and there's other philosophers that have already come up with these. Again, we got the Buddhists, we got Descartes, we got Maslow. I think he's more of a psychologist, but yeah, so I'm not trying to say that we're original, but even like we talked about before this episode started, we were looking at some of our YouTube stats. Like the numbers don't matter because we enjoy having the conversation for the sake of having the conversation. And we've talked about it in the past, but yeah, same idea.
Right on. Good stuff, Aaron.
Okay. I don't know if we can top this next time. We'll have to, I don't want to end, but I don't know what we're going to do next time.
I'm sure we'll find someday.
Okay. Well, it's good talking to you, Trishul.
Yep, good conversation, Aaron. I enjoyed this one as well. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, if you have any feedback from us that can help us get our head out of the sand, we'd love to hear about it, or just anything else in general. And then, of course, please subscribe, like, and share. I should also mention, Aaron alluded to this, all of our episodes have now been uploaded to YouTube. So if you want to listen to this again, you can do so from YouTube. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of the Mind Money Spectrum podcast. Be sure to visit mindmoneyspectrum.com to access the entire library of episodes. Remember, it's not black and white, but the wide spectrum of gray area where you get to pursue the freedoms you want in life. Opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical as no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested in directly. Have a nice day.